Alright, welcome back everybody. I want to make another video today. I'm gonna be watching Force Gaming's take on Throne of Liberty. I'm doing this after I did my own review, so this is gonna be influenced based off of this. I just want to see what people say about the game, and hopefully this matches up to what I think, and maybe I'll comment on what I think is right or wrong about what they said. I don't know. We'll see. I just want to know what other people think about the game, and I think it's the best way to learn. Alright, let's go. Let's get it.
All right, so I finally got the chance to play Throne of Liberty, the open beta for the global version
That's pretty much my face after playing.
of the game was live for almost a full week, running from Thursday, July 18th until Wednesday the 24th, thanks to a last-minute 24-hour extension. Played most of those days exploring the game, trying the different types of content, checking out the progression systems, and leveling up. Got my character to max level. It took me a while, but I got there, and in the process was able to see not everything, but a fair bit of what Throne of Liberty has to offer. And you know what? How do I put this? Anytime a new MMO comes out, I have a pretty simple method of figuring out whether or not I'm enjoying the game. Basically, if the first day of playing flies by and then come day two, I can't wait to hop back in, that's a great sign.
I think that's pretty much what I would classify as a good game too. If I think about the game over and over again, and I was like, I want to play tomorrow morning, right? Happened to me recently with the first Ascendant because it was pretty fun. But this one, reason why I only got to level 15.
Like if I wake up extra early in the morning, pumped to play again, literally jumping out of bed, when that happens, I can confidently say, yes, I am enjoying it. And if any MMO is going to stand a chance at keeping me engaged longer term, it at the very least has to do that. Like if I am not hyped and rearing to go come day two, the game stands no chance at keeping me entertained 2 weeks later, right? Now in the case of my time with Throne of Liberty, I wanted to stop playing about halfway through my first day, and by the end but when day 6 rolled around, I was certainly ready to play something.
I'm actually surprised he actually got to the max level in the beta. Level 50, I think I saw. I couldn't even get couldn't even get to I mean, I was busy, but I would have gone to 50 if I really enjoyed the game. Yeah.
Else. Now, no one's forcing me to play, right? Of course not. But I love MMOs as a genre. I want to give each of these games a fair shake, and I also want my coverage to be somewhat competent. Like, I don't need to be an expert with 200 plus hours in every game, but I at least want to play enough to really see if there is something in there that I can enjoy. And there are stuff I like about Throne and Liberty, but there is more things that I haven't. This game,
I do wish I played a little bit more of the game to make a better analysis of my review. Hence, when I did my review, I did a lot of like take everything with a grain of salt because I didn't play that much of it. But I don't know. It is what it is.
will have an audience. I have no doubt about that, like without question. After all, there are very few options out there for fans who want massive scale PvP focused throne war simulators. Games in this subgenre of MMO do not come by very often, and so I suspect people who really like this style of game, they will put up with Throne and Liberty's various flaws because
that is true. There's not a lot of good MMOs these days that are coming out that quickly. I think the genre is kind of dying out right now. The only game that we really think might come that's pretty good is maybe Blue Protocol, but that's way far down. It's not really a true MMO, I don't think. But yeah, there's not a lot of MMOs besides like the main ones like WoW and Final Fantasy that I think people are starting to get a little tired of and want some new games to come out to try.
because again, there's really not a lot of options, and this game isn't that terrible. But if you are just a regular MMO player who isn't passionate about large-scale PvP guild battles, from what I've played so far, I just don't think Throne and Liberty is quite good enough or has enough variety on offer to keep you playing for very long. Or I will at least just say personally, this is the case for me. I will play this game again when it launches, but I think it will be like 1 week tops. So as for
I feel like he's correct in the fact that there's too much downsides. And of course, I didn't play the PvP, which is the main draw of this game. But I think even with that, people are gonna quit. I don't think there's enough content there to keep people engaged for too long. PvP is fun, but I feel like that subsection of an MMO is always gonna be not as popular as like other sections because there's not a lot of people that likes like like PvP in my eyes. I mean, no, there's a lot of people. It's just not a lot to make a whole game.
For an overview, what is this game? Well, the structure of Throne and Liberty is pretty straightforward. It is a seamless open world MMO. You start in one corner of the map, following the main story quest, then takes you through each of the game's various zones, in which you will complete the typical mix of tasks and objectives, killing enemies, collecting objects, fetching things for quest givers, and speaking to NPCs. Now, while you're doing this and you're going around, you're going to see a metric ton of other players in the world. This is one of the game's strengths. You'll also
I don't know about that. I didn't really see that many players as I was playing, but I was playing in the later end of the beta, so it probably affected how many people I saw. There were quite a bit in the city the first time I played it, but after a few days, there's like no one there. That means like either retention, like people still are gonna be people should still want to log in to see what's going on if they're interested in a game. But when like I logged into the last few days, there was no one there.
at times visit several towns and camps scattered about with NPCs and vendors for the game's many different crafting and progression systems. Instead of picking a class, the game actually uses a weapon-based system, so you can equip 2 weapons at a time. Each come with their own predetermined skills from which you will select the ones you want to use. Gear comes with several stat
Again, I like the system. The system is pretty cool. I would rather them work on the system a lot more though, because I don't know. There's gonna be some stat difficulties, I think.
options for supporting your build, where you choose pieces with a mix of the various offensive and defensive traits that you want. All of the gear, weapons, as well as the skills can be enhanced through various means. They each have their own form of progression, but the basic rundown is you will use items that you collect by playing and then power up those things, leveling them up and making them all stronger. Beyond the main story and side quests, there are also open world events of various kinds where you and however many other players on your server work together and even at times compete to complete different tasks. These range from things like killing basic enemies and collecting objects, or even taking on larger world bosses. As for structured PvP,
I witnessed this mechanic this thing that this the system. I think it's good. I think but I think they should introduce it a little bit later in the game because it just distracts people from actually leveling at the earlier stages. And like I don't know, like when I was doing it in the earlier stages, no one's doing it or no one's there. And I just think the resources put into the lower levels is should reevaluate that into the later levels. And having these like systems early game is probably not too great.
PvE, well, there's not much, but there are a few options. There is Taydel's Tower, which is the solo boss challenge tower climb with 20 floors for you to work through. There are co-op dungeons, which are the typical group dungeon MMO content, with 3 of them that you can do while you're leveling up, and then 6 available at the max level of 50. And then there's even open world dungeons, which are sort of like the public dungeon.
I do want to get to a point where I can try the dungeons. So when the game actually comes out, I'm gonna try to focus on leveling and try out the dungeons and see how the mechanics are on the bosses. I wonder if he talks about the raids, if there is going to be some. But if there's 6 dungeons at the end game and also 3 dungeons in between leveling, I feel like that's a little bit too little in between leveling because dungeons kind of gives you a break from the monotonous like leveling grind from just like doing quests one quest to another. If you only have 3 in between leveling, I think it's a little bit too low. I feel like I'll get super bored leveling. But we'll see. We'll see when the game comes out.
Dungeons in Elder Scrolls Online. They are open to all. You'll see a bunch of people running around as you go in there. It's just non-instance dungeons, basically. Go in, clear trash, and fight bosses. And then there is, of course, the PvP. This is the primary focus of this game. So those open dungeons that I mentioned, they are safe during the daytime, but when the server turns to night, they are flagged for full open PvP. Also, the zones in the game will periodically be flagged for conflict, during which open world PvP is enabled. I learned this by accident as I was trying to complete some contracts. I had 2 people walk up behind me and just gank me all of a sudden. Funny enough too, I didn't even realize what was happening until I had like a third of my health left.
That's also the big problem with this game that like, there's so much visual clutter. You can't tell what the heck is going on. Like you said, if that is the system that's in the game when PvPs get flagged randomly in a zone, and if he didn't realize that, that means a lot of people probably didn't realize it either and probably got ganked. And an open world PvP in any MMO is really finicky, in the sense that it's gonna make a lot of players rage quit, and it's gonna make a lot of people quit the game. And the NA scene is not geared towards open world PvP, and but we'll see where it goes because I just think we're just gonna get griefed and then people gonna quit.
At first, I thought they were helping me kill my target, but nope, that's not what was taking place. And then beyond that, the game does have various forms of organized PvP with events like castle sieges and various guild wars.
The castle sieges, I want to be a part of eventually. I want to try it a little bit. Like the trailers and everything expresses like this is like their main draw of the game, and so I'll probably need to test out before I even get like a true review on it. Even though give my first impressions, a true review, I would like to do all the content that they want to be shown off. Especially this castle siege thing. I don't want to be that golem or whatever. Hopefully, being a player running around is fun
in the open world. So playing through the game will have you following the main story quests, doing some side quests and open world events as you move through the zones, while also completing contracts, which are sort of like dailies. You'll run the handful of dungeons, both the co-op ones and the open world ones, and then do PvP whenever a zone flips over or it's nighttime in one of those open world dungeons.
Looking at this right now, I don't see anywhere that tells you you're in a PvP zone. The mini map doesn't tell you. Like, where does it tell you you're flagged for open world PvP? I might just be blind, but it is kind of.
And also, while you're leveling and when you're at max, you are constantly working on your progression, leveling up and powering up your weapons, gear, as well as your skills to get stronger.
I think the progression system for gear and skills is going to be like the other Korean MMOs. It's going to be very tedious and very grindy. And I feel like it's going to be a lot of one more thing that deters people from playing this game for too long.
And if you're playing the game the proper way, at some point you're gonna need to join a guild to take part in the large-scale guild activities and PvP, because frankly, if you are a solo player or a PvE focused player, you're pretty much SOL and won't have much to do in this game. This is a large scale guild focused PvP focused game at its very core. So that is the basic high level overview of Throne and Liberty. Now let's go ahead and dive into my thoughts on the game. Let's start with the positive, shall we? So for one, the visuals. This game looks fantastic across the board. I think the visual presentation of just about everything is really impressive. Like, I love the look of the world.
I do agree. I think they spent a lot of time on the visuals, and I think it shows. Animation, art style, it's just a leagues above what the last came out. I guess the one that was Tarsland, but Tarsland is like the different style. But yeah, I like the art style, and I feel like they can work with it. If they fix everything else, I think it'll be really good.
Environments and structures in the game. You've got a good variety of biome types like big open grassy fields, dense forest, large mountains, deserts, there's underground caverns and dark dungeons. Many of these areas and zones are also dotted by camps and towns with medieval inspired architecture, and I think it all looks really good. Like, this is just a pretty game from an environmental standpoint. Also, the draw distance, how far you can see objects and characters still rendered in and how far in the distance you can see in the game, it is really impressive.
It's impressive, but you have a crazy ass computer probably for doing all this. Normal people probably won't be have that turned on because it is impressive. I would say I don't have that amazing computer, and I can still run it pretty well. I think I had some major lags here and there when recording, but besides that, I think yeah, I think you should consider if it applies to everybody though.
Like, this is a big world. It's fully seamless. You can see really far. There's a lot of people, and it all looks really good. I also appreciate the lighting and coloring. The game's got a fair bit of saturation to it, which is nice, not too common in many modern MMOs. And just as impressive have been the character animations, the spells and attacks. I personally played as this paladin type class using a sword and shield with a wand offhand, and this let me play as like a tank, a healer, and also have some decent damage with dots and AoE attacks. And some of the stuff is just really nice looking, like some really good looking animations and attacks, especially the spell casting, some of the healing abilities. I think it looks really good. It's got a bit of pop to it, but it's not overly flashy. I like it. Visually, this game looks great. Really.
Yeah, the animations for casting and stuff is way better than a lot of other games, especially Tarzan. Tarzan's skill expression is very minimal, and I didn't really like it. And this game is miles above the Tarzan's animations, which is good.
Really no complaints there. The player count as well, this is awesome. Tons of players running around everywhere, especially on day one. The game felt really alive. Now this quickly changed as the player counts plummeted to nearly 50% on the second day and have just kept going down from there. But man, on that very first day, everything was popping, right? Like there was tons of people loaded everywhere, people standing around the crafting and vendor NPCs in town. The first couple of zones were full of players fighting enemies at the major quest and contract hotspots. There's also no mob tagging, and the spawn rates were super high. Enemies constantly popping in, so there wasn't an issue here. Just tons of enemies, tons of players attacking those enemies and casting spells. It looked good. Like my server felt jam-packed on that first day, and that was great. This is what an MMO launch should feel like, and there's a real nice sense of community that happens there when you see all these people playing the game simultaneously. And what was even more impressive with all of that stuff in mind was the performance. Like this game ran exceptionally well, which was so impressive.
All right, I had problems running it on the 3070. Again, I think unless you test it on a lower end computer, like I don't think you should be able to say that. Because different people is gonna have different problems, especially if you have like a different graphics card from like Nvidia or AMD. You know, it ran well in certain aspects, but also didn't run well in other aspects as well, especially in towns and stuff.
Impressive considering how good the visuals are, considering how far you can see and the draw distance of rendering, and the sheer quantity of players, enemies, and NPCs all around you. The fact that this game ran so smoothly pretty much blew me away. Like, I don't recall any significant frame drops or performance issues the entire time I played. Nothing. It was buttery smooth, which is just a real nice change of pace from what you're used to in open world MMOs that look good when a lot of players are in a single area. Normally, this is a recipe for performance drops and or server issues like rubber banding. I saw none of that the whole time playing, which again was great and impressive. I also enjoyed some of the open world content. These are basically what amount to public events with a bit of competition rolled in. So there are these things called regional events as well as field and arc bosses. These will pop up basically hourly with events showing up on a rotating schedule in the handful of zones across the world. Most of them will amount to kill some number of enemies, collect and turn in some objects and items, and or fight a boss. There is an element of competition as well, where your performance compared to other players will impact and determine how good the rewards you get at the end. And then also, it's extra competitive at times because sometimes these can be PvP flagged, so open field fighting, and there will be guild-focused variations as well. Also, those open world dungeons are super cool. I love these in any MMO, and I enjoyed them here as well. Basically, hopping into what is almost like a mini raid that's non-instanced and just coming across other players who are trying to take on this difficult challenge, take on these difficult groups of enemies to fight these bosses. It's really fun because it makes for a lot of dynamic moments where you will encounter players struggling and you help them out, and then you group up together and you work towards the boss. I really love this about the genre. And
Yeah, I also want to experience this and see how well it does. Maybe the concept is pretty cool. If it's like open world dungeons, and I never heard of that before, so hopefully it stays and actually be effective as content. It's interesting. I kind of want to do it.
and it's done pretty well here. I also think the game has a few nice little touches here and there. There's things like this campfire system where scattered all throughout the zones will.
I like the campfire system. The campfire system is just arbitrary. Just give us bandage, you know. Just give us bandage to heal wherever we want. Like we have to find a campfire just to heal. It's kind of nuts.
These campfires that you can go up, light, and rest at them, quickly replenishing your health and mana. That's a nice little touch. Core Punk should take note of this. There's also a lot of grapple points all throughout the world.
Like, why wouldn't you just give us like a way to heal ourselves and not have to have a campfire? Like a lot of MMOs do this by giving you like bandages or like a chair. to sit and rest. But in this case, in this game, we have to find something in the open world just to heal. I feel like people can get frustrated in the point, at least to the point where like, oh, I'm kind of low and I can't heal, so I have to find these campsites, but I don't see where it is, or it's kind of far away from me. So am I gonna just die walking towards it, or what? Like I will have to witness the system a little bit more to, but I can see like how it could be frustrating for some people. He did play it more than I did, so if it wasn't really a problem, then I guess it's not really a problem, I guess. But I can see where a problem could arise. If you get what I'm saying.
World, and you have this grapple hook that you can pull yourself up to. Now, sometimes this is just to get up to that higher elevation, but other times it will launch you way up in the air, which then allows you to make use of the gliding and then just to get to another position, which is really cool. And then the environmental effects, how they change stuff in the world, things like at nighttime, certain
The grappling hook thing is a little buggy. A few times it's just like it makes you float all over the place, which is kind of weird. I hope they fix that a little bit and make it more smooth. Because every other animation is smooth, right? Hopefully they see that there's a problem with that and probably fix that.
enemies and parts of the world will fall asleep. The fact that weather impacts the environment, like filling up bodies of water, changing where you can get access to thanks to swimming, or the fact that it even affects some combat abilities, in particular the staff class, the mage class of this game. Their lightning attack.
Oh, I didn't witness this. I think that the idea is pretty cool. Weather affects your skills and stuff. I didn't know that it affects the environment. That's a cool system that I would like to see more of, I guess. Yeah. It's like the first time I've ever seen a system like that in MMO. Pretty cool.
Attack gets super juiced whenever it's raining. Like, that's really neat. So again, some nice little touches. Those are the good, and there again are things I do like about this game, but overall there was more bad. So let's move.
Yeah, overall, all the things he said is good about the game. I think I agree with. Most of these things I witnessed are pretty good. Or he didn't really say much that are good. Like he's pretty much talking about the artistic vision and animations and all the small stuff that does not really matter in the grand scheme of things. So we'll see where he goes from here.
Move into that. For starters, the combat, it's just pretty bad. This was the #1 complaint that I kept seeing crop up over those first couple of days when I was looking at discussion about this game, when I was talking to people about it. And I agree, I think it's one of the biggest issues that I have with the game, and I can see why a lot of people were complaining. Now, they have announced that there are updates coming, which include a revamp to the skill system. I'm just not sure if that's going to fix the core.
Yeah, as I said in my first impressions, the combat is kind of wonky. Again, they did say they're going to change it, but at this point, how much are they going to change? From like they've done it twice already, or this, um, and I just don't have, I can't give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to make it great, you know?
Problems and the issues that have resulted in so many people saying, I think the combat feels bad. So what is the issue here? Well, from what I played so far, I'd say compared to every other tab target and even the hybrid action MMOs, which Thorn and Liberty is kind of trying to split the difference, it's simply not as good, smooth, or fluid as a lot of the other games I've played. Targeting is clunky, which I think is a big issue that people often overlook. And I also think there's a bit of latency and lack of responsiveness to everything. Just again, overall, I think the combat feels bad.
All right, latency, I don't feel like that was a problem. It could just be where I'm playing and how close I am to the servers. Um, but everything else he is correct upon. The tab targeting, the targeting system is really, really wonky, as I said in my first impressions. Yeah.
Now, you will see people reply when this critique comes up saying, but this is a tab target MMO. It's just like every other tab target MMO. It's exactly like WoW.
No, it's not. This tab target is ass. This tab target, you need a tab target and then you need a focus target before you're even able to hit anything. And even when you're focus targeting, it freaking the character just randomly decides to target something else. And if you rotate your character, it untargets. It's just there's too much stuff that makes the targeting really, really bad. It's just really, I don't know how they fucked it up so hard, but it's really, really bad.
What's the difference? And this is crazy to me. Like, what are you talking about? There are better and worse versions of combat systems in every single genre. The games that stand out as having good combat do so when compared to the games that have bad combat.
Yeah, if you compare like WoW tap targeting and Final Fantasy tap targeting, those are miles and miles ahead of this tap targeting because there's no like it's this game's tap targeting is a little bit similar to Final Fantasies. Like you can tap target something and then you start auto attacking. But your auto attack is on a weird ass button E, and in the other game, there's a lot of more skills that aren't like on like a long ass cooldown that you can use to start initiating combat. In this game, if your whole skill bar is on cooldown, you can't focus target unless you press E, which is really funky, I think. Oops, I put that right here.
Like when people say Bungie makes some of the best feeling first person shooting, that's because it feels better than other FPS games that feel worse. Just like how not every Souls-like feels as good as the core Souls.
Yes, he's making a great point. Even if there's even this game, the Souls-like game, you can tell a difference between the combat between like Elden Ring and like maybe Lies of P. Like, like you can't like Elden Ring is like the top tier in animations and combat, and then Lies of P is up there, but it doesn't match it fully because there's still a little clunkiness that happens, right? Like there, even if there's tap targeting, it's good. There's going to be good and bad tap targeting based off of how they coded it to like tab target, which to tab target, who to tab target, and what's next in your list of tab target. Like I say, like you're fighting a monster like in front of you, and then there's another one to the left of you that's gonna attack you soon, and then there's one that's 4 meters, like 10 meters away, and then the game decides, oh, you finish killing this one, you press tab, and you don't target the one close to you that's about to attack you. You target the one that's 4 meters, like 10 meters away, and then you won't be able to do anything, especially if you're melee, right? And then you got to tap this back to over here, and then you have to press E to focus target before you even start attacking. There's too much stuff going on.
Souls games, some do, but many don't. That applies here as well. Just because Throne and Liberty is a tab target game doesn't mean that it is done as well as every other tab target game. Of course not. There's not some magic button that the developers press when making their game that goes boop. You now have a perfectly implemented iteration of your desired combat system that feels just as good as all the best.
Well, maybe there is. Maybe eventually there will be
games out there. That's not how any of this works, not at all. Subjectively, I just think Throne and Liberty feels inferior to many of the other tab target MMOs that I've played. Now, why exactly? Well, I'm not a game developer, but there are a few possible reasons as to why this doesn't feel as good subjectively. Good feeling combat in a lot of cases can be boiled down to responsiveness and game feedback. Responsiveness of controls, like how well the character's actions respond to player input, and how well or not that is animated, as well as the sounds that coincide with it, and responsiveness of the game servers, where even the smallest delay of 100 milliseconds can result in a feeling of sluggishness.
That is true, and Final Fantasy 14 has done strides to help perfect that system, and that's why the system in that game is so refined to the point where even if there's a little bit of lag, you won't really notice it because the game compensates for it and also tells you when it'll hit you, and you're able to react to abilities based off of that. They spent a long time fixing that system, and people don't really see it that much. But if you play Final Fantasy 14, you'll see that you won't see a lot of lag, even if you have like 60 ping, 70 ping to your combat, because they have a system. They worked on a system to help you it feel great, even if you're lagging a little bit. And this game doesn't have that.
Be it moving your character, timing a counter, or casting a spell. I think there's a very good chance that this game suffers from some level of netcode or input lag for character actions, you're attacking and casting spells, as well as character movements, and a potential reason for this could be that focus on the large-scale PvP. It is the case that most games do not run as well as this game does, where there are so many players running around, and especially games that look this good, and my guess is that they sacrificed some of the combat responsiveness in order to get this better performance to happen. I also think that character movement by design is just
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
just a bit sluggish. They have added the ability to move in combat, but it is pretty clear, having played over these past few days, that this game clearly wasn't designed with
Yeah, it was definitely not designed for you to move because if you move, as I said it in my review, if you move any inch farther away from your thing you're fighting, you either get untargeted from it or you just stop attacking because your range is fucking non-existent.
that movement in mind. Nearly every single thing about the combat wants you to stand in place. The incredibly short range of melee attacks, far shorter
Thank you. Yes, your range on the melee is like you have to be kissing your monster. It's so stupid.
than what I've played in other tap target MMOs. I think the melee distance is like 1 or 2 meters, where a lot of
Yes, it's definitely 1 or 2 meters. More on the fact that it's probably 1 meter. You do have to be hugging your monsters. Freaking holy shit! They need to increase the range for melees.
MMOs will be like 2.5 to 5 meters of melee attack distance. You got to be on top of your targets to hit them with melee in this game. Also, the small radius of all cone and area of attack abilities in the game currently, and the way they've implemented the parry system. They did add more of a movement focus last year in response to beta testing, but it is obvious that the game was not initially
They were lazy as fuck. They just added a few things to make a little bit of change, but I don't think they did too much to affect the game that much. Like you can tell that they tried to make it make more enticing to move, but they didn't fix anything else that requires your character to move, like the range and also the targeting system.
designed to be played this way. Even though I can move while attacking, I will perform vastly better in combat encounters standing still. I did feel more comfortable with the combat as I played more, and I would say that come max level, I was enjoying doing things like AoE grinding packs of enemies or tanking in those group dungeons, but I feel like that might be more a matter of me just getting used to the combat system rather than it actually all of a sudden feeling good, going from feeling bad.
Yeah, I think I started getting used to it the later I was playing the last few days. But even getting better at it doesn't mean that the system is good.
Added to feeling good. Now, that said, as I mentioned, they have announced plans to fix the combat. This would be the second time they've attempted to fix it, the first resulting in the current iteration that meant
No, it's probably the third time. The first time it was total auto battler. I heard, and they changed it to a different system, and I think they changed it to this system recently, and then now they're gonna change it again.
many people seem unsatisfied with, but they are making changes. They are adding this skill expression system for further customization of existing abilities. This looks like it will open up and allow for some new playstyles and attack variations, doing things like increasing the attack range and radius of abilities, making faster projectile speed, removing cast times, turning single targets into multi-target.
Again, I think they're focusing on the wrong things because the underlying system, the underlying core combat system is so bad that whatever you do with skills are just doesn't fix the issue. Like targeting and initiating combat is like a big factor in how the game feels. And if you're just gonna be like, oh, this is raw, it's bad, but what about the shiny thing we're gonna do over here? It's not gonna fix the problem. It's just gonna like put a cover of paint over the problem, and people are gonna recognize that like pretty quickly, I think.
Good attacks. This will certainly add more interesting variations and options, but I am not certain that it will fix the core fundamental issues
Yes, like what you said, like what I said.
of people feeling like this game has bad combat. We will see. Along those same lines, the game makes heavy use of camera smoothing, and it just sucks. It's very noticeable when playing with mouse and keyboard. Basically, every time you turn your camera to look around, there is this acceleration and deceleration that happens on the front and back of that camera movement. Now, this is pretty normal and expected when
I didn't notice this.
you're playing with a controller because it feels natural while using a thumbstick to rotate the camera to have that acceleration and deceleration on the front and back. But it feels horrendous when you're playing with
I just feel like they're super lazy. The devs are super lazy. Like they're like, oh, let's make a system for controller players, and just copy and paste it for the mouse and keyboard players, without really thinking about how that affects the gameplay and how it feels.
the mouse. Now, the good news is this is a super easy fix. They just need to put an option in the menus to disable camera rotation smoothing. Problem solved. You do that, we're all gravy. For as good as the world looks, I also feel like it's all a bit lifeless and soulless feeling. There's like a real lack of character and personality to the play space. A lot of it just feels like a generic fantasy world. It looks pretty, but it feels pretty generic and without much cohesion to it. And also, like, it feels
I mean, that's like most MMOs. They're not gonna really have like that cohesion in a lot of games. Maybe Final Fantasy 14 has a better grasp of the situation, and I think they deliberately placed certain mobs in certain places to make it feel like a world. But most MMOs don't do this, especially Korean MMOs, because they just feel like, oh, this is the world. We're just gonna populate it with random mobs. That and that's it.
like the enemies were just kind of
I think it's a good thing. I'm just saying that it's been happening forever. I don't think people are gonna fix it.
plopped into position. Like, hey, place enemies so many meters apart within the sand dune, and that's like how they designed it. I don't know. The result of this, though, really is that the world has not felt very immersive for me, and this coupled with the poor combat, I think, is a large
That's true. I feel like the world is kind of bland.
part of the reason why I wasn't really motivated to keep playing. I made myself do it, but I wasn't really thoroughly enjoying it. I wasn't immersed in the space, and it didn't feel great to play. And that really killed my motivation. So, also, lack of PvE content. Now, I am fully aware I went into playing this game knowing this was a PvP focused game. Even still, I am shocked like how little PvE content is. There's
Yeah, PvE is a make or break. It's a make it or break it for a lot of MMOs because not a lot of people are going to PvP. You might think there's a lot, but like going off of like the past MMOs, PvP has always been lackluster in the player base. And when there's any problems with balancing, people just quit the PvP. And then if this game has only PvP as the main draw, then they're just gonna quit the game. You know?
practically nothing. So you've got 6 co-op dungeons and a handful of open world dungeons and then those hourly public events, but that is basically it for PvE in the game. Like, yeah, there's Tadel's Tower, but that is a one-off thing as far as I can tell. You do it once and then you're pretty much done with it forever unless they reset it seasonally or something. So besides doing dailies, doing your contracts and purchasing your time-gated resources and currencies, there's really not much else to do.
I swear to God, if they have a lot of dailies, I'm just not gonna play. Dailies are like the bane of my existence on MMOs because this just it makes you feel like the game is work. You have to sign on every single day to do it. If it's like a couple days, like takes like 10 minutes to do, then yeah, sure. But like if it's like you need to do like a shit ton, then I feel like that's gonna be detriment to my enjoyment of the game.
Do but PvP, and that is fine if you like PvP, right? There will still be plenty for you to enjoy. You'll have months of fun. Well,
Not really, because if other people don't like PvP and then you're the only one who likes PvP and then they quit, it makes the game less enjoyable for you because there's not going to be a lot of players to queue for PvP and you're just going to be it's just going to be like dead space.
maybe or maybe not if the global release is anything like the Korean one. So here's a recap of how things went from someone who played The Throne and Liberty when it launched in Korea last December. They said in the first 2 months there were many guilds fighting each other. ZVZ at the time was very chaotic and interesting. Also, because of the chaos, small guilds could join in the battle and have fun as well. However, 2 months later, some guilds gradually withered or merged into bigger alliances, and then the server PvP all of a sudden revolved around 2 to 4 giant alliances. Small guilds at that point had no chance to participate and
Always going to happen, especially if you look into like Black Desert PvP system. This is everyone. It's eventually it becomes politics, and everyone's gonna be like, oh, we're friends with this one, and we're alliance with this, and then eventually you're just gonna bring a bunch of alliances together and to fight bigger alliances, and then eventually the server or the game is just gonna have two big alliances fighting each other, and then either you're on part of that alliance or you're not, and then they have to have a system to incorporate smaller guilds, and but I don't know if they're actually gonna do that in this game.
unless they
And since they said that small guilds are kind of excluded. I don't think they have the system for that.
Merged. And then at the 3 to 5 month mark, the entire server is left alone or merged into a single alliance that monopolizes all PvP activities. PvP is like a pool of stagnant water. Many players quit the game. Now, this is like a regular problem with PvP focused games, and it seems like Throne and Liberty
Yeah, that's why I said it's always a big problem with these things. Black Tester has a way to this incentivizing these behaviors, but besides that, this not a lot of MMOs that based off of PvP has thought of a way to solve that issue where people just become friends or people just monopolizing like oh, I don't want to lose. Well, so how would I not lose? We just join the bigger guild, right? And then eventually everyone joins the same alliance and no one fights anybody.
it hasn't done much to mitigate.
Or they win trade, or they have like a contract with each other saying that, oh, I get this area here, and then you get this area here, and we just profit, and then there's no PvP at all.
Mitigate it, or at least that wasn't the case in the Korean launch. Not first-hand experience here. This is second-hand what I'm giving you, but doesn't look well for the long-term lifespan of PvP-focused players in this game. Another thing that I was surprised by was how small the game was. So the playable area consists of 2 main regions, and it's just pretty small. I don't know what else to say. I think this is one of the smallest open-world MMOs I've ever played in terms of actual play space. There's just not...
Oh, really? Well, I looked at the map. I thought it was pretty big compared to the size, but I guess some of the areas aren't playable. I'll just believe Force on this because I haven't really got to explore most of the map myself.
Not a lot of map to explore here. Now, they do have clear plans to expand. You can already see the zones in the north sketched out, but that's not in the game currently. I don't know what the total time would be, but if I were to guess, I would say like 10 or 15 minutes walking from one end of the map to another. I mean, it's a pretty small game. It is. I was shocked by how tiny this was for an open world MMO. Menus, menus, menus. This game has billions of menus and currencies and progression systems, and I'm not...
This game has way too many systems. And I think that's gonna be very tedious to deal with all of them, and it's gonna make people realize that there's other better things to do, and they're gonna stop playing this game.
I'm not gonna run through them all other than to tell you there's a ton of these. There's a ton of clicking through menus and submenus and claiming rewards for completing these things.
This game was first made to be an auto battler. That's why they have all these claim rewards and stuff, like a mobile game. So I can see why it's there, but no one's gonna like all these things, even though you get free stuff. It's still kind of crazy.
And I'm just so sick and tired of this being in every new MMO. These free-to-play games are plagued with these multiple reward tracks, and
this especially happens in Tarsland, which I didn't like because it just reminds me of a mobile game, and I don't want to play a mobile MMO anymore.
Progression systems and currencies, and I just think it makes these games demonstrably worse without questions. These games would just be so much better if they got rid of all those menus and if they put all of these currencies and resources and just had them in the game. Like, imagine if I just went out, I killed enemies, I completed quest, and I got rewards without all of these added...
Problem is, like, this game already has too much like side stuff you have to do, and if they add all that stuff into the game as well, it's gonna have so much shit to do, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. But in this case, I think it's gonna be a bad thing because you just have way too much things to do to get what you want, you know?
Layers of BS without the daily time gating for currencies and all this. It's just, I just hate it.
Both is the problem. What he said is correct. It is the problem. But moving all that stuff into the game by adding more quests and stuff is also a problem, I think.
It's so much, and this game is plagued with it. And this is not exclusive to Throne and Liberty. Billions of menus and time-gated content and billions of...
Yes, it's like the modern MMO these days, especially if you look at Qatar's Land. That shit was riddled with like time-gated and rewards and achievements and battle passes. It's the same shit.
Crafting currencies and resources, par for the course in the genre at this point, but that doesn't make me any less sick of it. So everything I just went over in terms of negatives is why I'm really not expecting to play too much of this game when it launches later this year. None of that even takes into consideration the pay to win, because in the open beta, players couldn't spend money to accelerate their power progression, but as we know, at launch, you will be able to. It's no secret that Throne and Liberty falls under many traditional definitions of pay to win, although they have been making some slight adjustments for the global launch. One big note is that they removed the blessing, this basic.
They're gonna put that back in. I swear. when player count starts dwindling, they're gonna put this in to milk the whales.
Premium optional subscription that will let you run more dungeons every day, which and in
people can complain as much as they want in NA, but eventually when people start caring less about the game, they're just gonna put this back in to make more money off of the whales. Like whatever they say now is not going to be true in like a month or two after the game releases.
Turn meant faster progression. That is gone for the global release, although they specified it's gone at launch and it could come back later. But the
see, he even knows.
Big thing is that you can still, with real money, purchase Lucent, and that premium currency is the only currency used in the player auction house, and this lets you.
I saw gold, so you can purchase gold, huh? I didn't even see that part when I was playing, but
buy things to speed up your power progression. It is still going to be the case that people who drop a ton of cash will have a power advantage over those who don't for portions of time. Now,
this is a Korean game, Korean MMO. It's going to be, like I said in my first impressions, it's going to happen. It's common in Korea, and I don't think they're going to change it too much because that's the only way that they're ever going to make actual money off the game.
Eventually, the free players can catch up to the paid players, but there will be windows of time while playing the game where the swipers find themselves ahead.
Especially if you're playing a PvP game, an open world PvP game. When you're ahead like this, you're just going to deter people that trying to invest their time to get to the end game, because they're just going to get ganked over and over again by players that spent money and be a lot more powerful than the players that aren't spending money.
And they're also doing the guild stuff. They are going to have a clear advantage over the people just playing for free or spending a little bit of money. And in a game that has zones that periodically flag for open PvP and dungeons that are full open PvP when it's nighttime in game, and an end game that 90% of its content is focused on large scale PvP, knowing that unless I'm just grinding Throne and Liberty nonstop all day, I will be getting obliterated by swipers at some point in time. No thank you. The game has been like barely fun enough for me to stick around for these 6 days without getting smashed by pay-to-win players that come launch. The moment this happens, that is probably when I'm going to quit.
That's probably going to happen to 70% of the players that are going to play, and they're just going to quit, and they're just going to have a bunch of swipers, and then they're going to add the blessing back in the game because the swiper is going to swipe to be more powerful than. If you're going to try to be more powerful than the other swipers, so they're just going to keep swiping.
Probably be doing me a favor though. Oh, also, recently they revealed that pre-orders for the game are going to be selling early access bundles.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
So for $40 and higher, if you feel like spending more, you get to play the game 5 days prior to the official launch. This is always lame whenever any game does it, although they have at least announced that there will be separate launch day servers, so you don't have to play with people who started on the early access servers 5 days.
So what's the point if you're just going to make different servers for different people? Like, that's so stupid. What's the point of buying early access if you're just going to play with the people with early access? And then let's say like only 10,000 people plays the early access, and then but like your main audience is going to be 50,000 people. And then you're just on a server with 10,000 people, and then the rest of the server is more populated. You're gonna, and then there's also server transfers that there's no point really in doing that, because either the players that are playing at the early access servers is just gonna buy a server transfer if they allow that, or they're just gonna move over to the new servers with more players, and they're gonna make a new character anyway. Yo, this game is targeting whales so hard.
Days earlier. Still, I don't love companies selling early access as a means of inducing FOMO, driving their
I'll make a video on that.
Sales. If your friends are playing Throne and Liberty and they all want to play right away as soon as early access is available, of course you are going to want to purchase that $40 bundle. That is how FOMO-driven marketing works. They are counting on this happening. Now, ultimately, Throne and Liberty is a free-to-play game, I guess, unless you want to play those 5 days early head start. So if any portion of what we've talked about interests you, if anything about what you've seen here interests you, you should check the game out. It's a new game. It's a new MMO. This doesn't happen very often. People like playing.
I say you should try it out, but be very wary of what's happening with the what's happening with the pay to win and cash up, and just be careful not to get yourself swindled of a lot of your money.
These. There's no harm in it, and I'm not here trying to stop anyone from having a good time, but my goal is to share my honest thoughts about what I play, and while there were things that I liked overall this past week, I'm fairly disappointed with Throne and Liberty. I enjoyed my first week of playing New World and playing Lost Ark way more. Those games I was still amped to play on day 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I wish Lost Ark was better. They just went downhill after a few patches.
That was really not the case with Throne and Liberty. Now, I will give Throne and Liberty a second shot when it officially launches in a couple of months. Maybe those changes that they're making to the combat system improve it enough that I all of a sudden enjoy it. And I am hoping to see more content added to the game and have the world expanded a bit. I actually still can't believe how small the play space is for an open world MMO. This is like the smallest map I've ever played in an MMO. As for the pay to win, well, I mean, that ship is long gone. It's sailed far away. Like, that's not changing. You're still going to have the Lucent people paying to power up their progression, and there will be windows of time where they will have an advantage, especially if they're also part of the big guilds farming all the hardest content and controlling all the activities, because this is a PvP focused game. Zones that are flagged for PvP and those open dungeons at night that are flagged for PvP and things that are gated behind those big scale PvP activities. And if you're not a part of those big guilds, if you're not in that large alliance of guilds or whatever, you're just going to be left out of a lot of what this game is offering. There will be an audience for this game, of that I am certain, and I hope they enjoy it. I just don't know that I'm going to get very much time out of this title, and that's fine as well. All right, that's it for today. Thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time, and I will update you on Throne and Liberty during the official launch. We'll see if enough changes, and if they remove the pay, no, that's who are we kidding? All right, see you guys later.
Yep. So like he said, I mean, this is gonna be what it is. I think he is correct. I think
You've got two.
It's just gonna be. This video is really good. He makes really great points. I agree with mostly everything he says. And a couple things that, like maybe it's the campfire thing, I didn't really agree upon. But yeah, this video is very good. I think he makes very great points of why this game is going to probably die out at the beginning, like when the game launches. Yeah, hopefully you guys like pay attention to what
Periodically flag for open people.
What he says, and be well informed that this game is going to be a lot of swiping. He's a Korean MMO, and just be careful when you start playing this game. I myself is going to try to play it when it releases. To the best of my ability, I try to get to max level as quick as I can. Try to do all the systems, and then make a full review on it. But until then, we're just gonna have to see where it's gonna go. I don't have very high hopes for like what they do with the combat. It is kind of it's already, I think it's already over. It's like you've done it twice, or you're gonna do it again, and it's gonna become an utter mess. You only have like a couple months to work on the system. Are you actually gonna revamp the whole thing, or you're just gonna work on some paint to cover over it, even though the core abilities, the core function of the combat is bad? It's gonna be what it is, right? But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed my reaction to this video. Please drop me like, subscribe if you like the content. I'm gonna drop the link to his video in the description. Go like his video as well. Force Gaming is always pretty well thought out on his videos on certain games, and you should pay attention. Some games we do like, some games, a lot of games. We do like a lot of games, or we do like a lot of similar games, but there are also some games that I don't, that he does. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys back here in the next video. Bye.